He exposed a secret so dark, so devastating, that it shook the US government to its core. A lone journalist, a web of lies, and a death so suspicious it still haunts those who know the truth. This is the story of Gary Webb, the man who uncovered the CIA's link to America's crack cocaine epidemic and paid the ultimate price. Welcome to the Shadow File. Make sure you're subscribed, because stories like these don't survive in the light. Before he became the subject of documentaries and Hollywood thrillers, Gary Webb was just a journalist, not a conspiracy theorist, not an activist, just a man chasing the truth. Born in 1955 in California, Webb started his reporting career at small newspapers before making a name for himself at the San Jose Mercury News. He had a reputation for being meticulous, intense, and above all, honest. But in 1996, Gary would publish a story that would change not just his life, but history itself. A three-part investigative series called Dark Alliance. It accused the United States government, specifically the CIA, of allowing drug trafficking into America's inner cities, not by accident, not unknowingly, but as part of a silent, strategic operation. So what exactly did Dark Alliance reveal? According to Webb, cocaine traffickers linked to CIA-funded Nicaraguan rebels, the Contras, had been flooding Los Angeles with crack cocaine. These profits were then allegedly funneled back into the CIA's secret war in Central America. In short, the CIA looked the other way, while America was poisoned, in exchange for funding a covert war. Webb wasn't guessing. He named names. He cited court documents, testimony, and years of interviews, and perhaps most damning of all, he detailed how this crack epidemic disproportionately destroyed black communities in south-central LA. What started as a quiet story in the Mercury News became a firestorm almost overnight. The internet, still in its infancy, exploded with outrage. For many Americans, especially black Americans, Webb's reporting confirmed what they had long suspected: that the government didn't just fail their communities, it may have targeted them. But that firestorm burned both ways. Mainstream media, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the LA Times, began to attack Webb's credibility. They called the story irresponsible, flawed, sensational. But they weren't just skeptical. They were brutal. His own paper, the San Jose Mercury News, buckled under pressure. Instead of standing by their reporter, they disavowed his work. They edited the online articles. They issued vague apologies. And ultimately, they pushed Gary Webb out. He was discredited, isolated, and left to defend himself alone. But here's what they didn't tell you. Much of Webb's core reporting, the names, the roots, the connections, was never disproven. In fact, years later, a CIA Inspector General report would quietly admit that yes, there was a relationship between the Contras and cocaine traffickers. And yes, the CIA knew about it. But by then, the damage was done. Webb had lost his career, his reputation, and soon, something far more permanent. Fast forward to December 10th, 2004. Gary Webb is found dead in his home in Sacramento, California. The cause of death? Suicide, gunshot wound to the head. But here's where things take a dark turn. Webb didn't have just one gunshot wound to the head. He had two bullets to the face with a revolver. The official explanation? The first shot didn't kill him, so he managed to fire a second. Even seasoned law enforcement and forensic experts were baffled. 2 gunshots to the head. In a suicide, it's possible, but it's also improbable, especially for a man who had exposed the CIA been publicly humiliated, and then spent years under surveillance and threats. And just like that, Gary Webb was gone. No major networks covered the inconsistencies, no national outcry, no federal investigation. Just another suicide, just another conspiracy theory, swept under the rug. But what if it wasn't just a suicide? What if it was a message to others, to journalists, to anyone who got too close? Some of Gary's close friends claimed he was not suicidal, that he had plans, that he was rebuilding. He'd recently landed freelance work. He was working on a book. He had just bought a motorcycle. None of it screamed hopeless. And yet, he ended up with 2 bullets in his head. Ask yourself this: who benefits from his silence? Gary Webb once said, "The official version of events is often the most implausible." And maybe that's why they feared him. He wasn't driven by politics. He wasn't out for revenge. He just believed the truth should be known, even if it made the powerful uncomfortable. He saw what others missed. He connected dots others refused to see. And in doing so, he uncovered a horrifying possibility: that the US government may have knowingly sacrificed American lives, especially black lives, in pursuit of foreign policy goals. That's not journalism. That's war. Today, Gary Webb is slowly being recognized for what he truly was: a truth-teller, a warning, a man who stood up and was taken down for it. His book, Dark Alliance, remains one of the most important pieces of investigative journalism ever written. But the questions he raised about government overreach, about secrecy, about accountability, still haven't been answered. And maybe they never will. But as long as we ask, as long as we remember, they can't fully erase him. You've just heard the story they never wanted you to hear. The story of Gary Webb and the price of exposing the truth. If this episode opened your eyes, subscribe to the Shadow File, because there are more stories like this, stories buried in silence, and someone has to dig them up. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay questioning, and stay in the shadows.